So, why is the no-buy trend taking over in 2025? Well, I don't know about you, but I have noticed an immense uptick in creators and people in my life who are doing a no-buy or a low-buy year in 2025. And it feels like everyone all at once decided to do this, including myself. I have been doing a low-buy year for the past 2.5 months. Not only do I think that this is a reaction to the rising cost of living, but I also feel like we're reaching a breaking point with social media, politics, things getting more expensive and wages not reflecting that, overconsumption on such vast and growing scales, and a real visceral need to find a sense of happiness and contentment that isn't tied to acquiring things, consuming, or spending money. I think we're going through a time where we're more connected than ever, and yet we're more lonelier than we've ever been. But I think that social media, shopping, the constant need to have the latest and greatest is losing some of its power that it's held over us in favor of a slower, more conscious life away from apps that make us feel inadequate. And on top of that, from the research I've done, it seems that many people want to take a more active approach in tackling their debt, weaponizing their purchases so they're not putting money into shops that don't reflect their ethical values, and out of necessity from economic instability, job loss, and an uncertain future. There are several trends I want to touch upon in this video, like Underconsumption Core, the rise of hobbies and their prevalence across social media, Overconsumption Core, and Digital Detox Core, which is definitely something new that I've just discovered, and why I think that trends like Underconsumption Core, although seem to be short-lived, have still helped contribute to this shift that we're seeing in many creators across multiple niches and every platform, including myself, towards a no or low buy year. I was also really interested to better understand why people who watch content on no buy or low buy years, why they were deciding to alter their habits this year and really engage with consuming less and spending less. And some of the comments that I came across were really eye-opening and definitely made me realize that there is such a huge and diverse range of reasons as to why people have decided to embark on a low buy year, some out of choice and a lot out of necessity. Before we go any further, I just want to say hello if you're new here. My name is Imi, and I decided to embark on a low buy year in 2025 because I felt like my relationship to consumption had become really warped, and I was really losing my sense of how much was enough. And so far over the past few months, I've been shocked at how much money I thought I needed for a lifestyle that I thought that I wanted. So it's safe to say that this challenge is completely rewiring my brain, and after only a couple of months has already changed my habits. I also talk a lot about food, sustainability, learning new skills and hobbies. So if any of that is interesting or appealing to you, then feel free to subscribe. And if you like this video, it really helps if you give it a thumbs up, but only if you like it. Okay, let's start with a comment I found on a video about Digital Detox Core, i.e. talking about how being offline has actually become a new form of social currency. And I think that this comment really exemplifies how we got to the stage that we're at now. So the comment says, social media went from a helpful, fun, and happy technology to being a terrible drug. And we can't forget the role COVID lockdowns played. Online life was thriving, but the lockdown sent it into overdrive. And for a year we learned how to live without physical connection. I definitely agree that the lockdowns became a catalyst for the acceleration of social media infiltrating every aspect of our lives. And TikTok in particular rose to popularity incredibly quickly. It truly felt like this wild and unpredictable place where all the possibilities were present. If you're a creator, the possibilities to grow, or if you were a small business, possibilities to make money, or if you were just simply trying to make videos with your friends to have a bit of fun. The possibilities were there and they felt endless. Over time, in my opinion, of course, TikTok seemed to become the place that trends were created and then would be replicated and recreated time and time again on other platforms across niches and across different creators. And last year, quite surprisingly, we had Underconsumption Core, or surprisingly to me anyway. For those of you who aren't chronically online, the social media trend Underconsumption Core revolves around the idea of mindful minimalism and deliberate non-consumption as a lifestyle choice. It directly challenges the consumerist culture promoted by fast fashion haul videos and overconsumption by celebrating the art of using what you already have, making intentional purchases, and resisting impulse buying. Some of the key aspects of this trend might include things like buying less and prioritizing quality over quantity, rejecting haul culture by focusing on long-term sustainability of an item rather than trendy disposable items, or simply just valuing what you already own, whether that is an expensive item or simply the item that you were able to afford. Also showing empties instead of hauls, so people would highlight products that they fully used before then repurchasing that same item or choosing something different. And this is actually also a really good example of Project Pan, which is something that, just like the no buy or low buy trend, has exploded on social media so far this year. And this is where you basically try to use up all of the items that you have stockpiled in your house. I've seen this mostly in the beauty niche. So if someone has 10 items of skincare, they might try to use those down before the next one. Or people just going through their items and realizing how many of the same things that they have and trying before buying a new product to completely finish it, to see the bottom of the actual packaging of that item. It also emphasizes frugality and resourcefulness, such as reusing, repairing, and repurposing items that you already have instead of buying new. Also opting out of trends, focusing on personal style and your needs rather than what's trendy or hype-driven shopping. This trend has definitely gained a lot of traction as people have pushed back against influencer-driven consumption and the fast-paced consumer cycles, instead advocating for a more sustainable and mindful approach to possessions and spending. Of course, there is always a dark side to every trend that has a glimmer of hope of being positive, and a lot of influencers co-opted this trend to actually still encourage you to buy things, but with the guise of these items being the best choice. And if you're only going to have one item, then you should have this one item. That were often more expensive and would give you the illusion that they would last longer than the one item that you already own. But of course, this just completely went against the idea of using what you already have, shopping your own closet, and, consuming less. There was also some backlash to this trend, and quite rightly so, because a lot of people were arguing that this was not underconsumption, but instead it was just simply normal consumption. And I think that our sense of how much we are consuming has become so warped because of social media that using the items that we already have until they're completely finished before buying a new item doesn't feel normal anymore. That feels like under-consuming. Or only having one bag, your favorite bag, feels like under-consuming. And I think that especially apps like TikTok have created such a huge disillusionment with how much we have and what is considered normal that a lot of us have really lost sight of what normal or under-consumption truly looks like. So I think a lot of the backlash that came with this trend was completely warranted, and hopefully it gave people who were engaging in this trend some things to consider. Even though this trend definitely has flaws, I think it's still a positive thing, and it's quite refreshing to see people actively talking about using what they have, stopping shopping, buying less, and voting with their dollar. As someone who's been deep in the world of zero-waste living, low-impact living, sustainable living, minimalism for the past 10 years, Underconsumption Core just kind of feels like a rebrand of the same ideals where you're just trying to use what you already have. And I also think part of this has kind of moved into a low or no buy year. This is not a new thing that people are doing, but I think it's just a way to make old ideals more exciting again, because doing a low buy or a no buy really feeds into the whole zero waste or minimalism or low impact living, those kind of things, or even sustainable living. They're just a whole rebrand into making it more exciting again for people to try and engage in. And you know what? If you need a rebrand to realign with your sustainable values, then I'm fine with that. One thing I will say, and I think is important to note, is that these trends are often short-lived, not just because trend cycles work this way, but because influencers can't make money from promoting a less consumer-driven lifestyle. Brands simply don't want to work with creators who are actively convincing their followers to spend less money and consume less and save more. And they're going to choose influencers who are shamelessly plugging things constantly or have a very niche audience that are willing to purchase things when the right thing comes along. Obviously, I'm making quite a few assumptions here, but this is kind of built from my own experience. Ever since I started talking about doing a low buy year, specifically on Instagram, I haven't worked with a single brand this year. I have on YouTube, but the interest on Instagram has literally been zero. So just something I thought I would put out there as something to think about. So from one pendulum swing to the other, out of the ashes of Underconsumption Core grew Overconsumption Core. And as you might imagine, the overconsumption core trend is a glamorization of simply overconsuming or excessive consumerism, where buying more, owning more, using more, and displaying wealth through material possessions is central. It thrives on the idea that more is always better, often fueled by fast fashion, trend cycles, and unsurprisingly, influencer culture. I don't know too much about overconsumption core because this is obviously not a trend that I actively participate in or even passively participate in, but some of the key aspects are massive shopping hauls showing excessive amount of clothing, beauty product, or home goods. One TikTok that really stood out to me that I remember from last year was a $4,000 Sephora haul. How do you even spend that much money at Sephora? I really don't understand. They might be constantly chasing trends or buying the latest fashion, gadgets, or decor to stay relevant. I think that that's very important. It's not just about buying things, but it's about buying the right things and buying them at the right time. They might be luxury or brand obsessed. I've seen this multiple times in skincare or beauty videos where, say, a brand like CeraVe, someone will be doing an ASMR restock and they'll be putting more items than they could ever possibly use, probably in a lifetime, into a fridge, and they'll all be the same brand. This could be brand baiting to try and get brands to actually sponsor them after this. It could be rage bait to get people to comment or share, or if you're annoyed by something and you're commenting below, you're still giving them engagement, which is exactly what some creators are looking for. So they could be luxury or brand obsessed, and these sort of high-end items or specific amounts of items could act as a status symbol in themselves. There are always going to be short-lived consumer cycles in overconsumption core where items are quickly discarded or replaced with a new trendy item that is the trending item for that week or month. I think also in overconsumption core there's a really big unboxing culture where the excitement of unboxing and opening new products is sort of central to their theme. I can understand why an unboxing video might be helpful if you are really looking forward to and have saved up for an expensive item and you want to know exactly what you're getting. But unboxing hauls for just copious amounts of excessive products it just feels very distasteful and a little bit grotesque, especially in today's climate. To some, it can be very aspirational and visually appealing, but overconsumption core has been criticized for promoting wastefulness, unsustainable shopping habits, and financial irresponsibility, often encouraging viewers to buy more than they actually need or that they can actually afford. And I think this feeds into this whole buy now, pay later kind of culture that we've got ourselves into, and this is exactly how payment plan companies make their money. They essentially say you can afford this because you can pay for it over several installments, so you can buy your happiness now and pay for it later, not to worry. You can keep up with trends and not worry about not being able to afford it currently. I think this is also important to note because this is how payment companies in particular make money off our constant desire to keep up with trends, to buy our happiness, and to really dampen that feeling of inadequacy that we can get from social media. One thing that is just really apparent to me in some of the TikToks that I've seen that aren't necessarily promoting overconsumption core, but are definitely still promoting overconsumption, is the sheer amount of wastefulness that clearly it goes on behind the scenes just to be able to create that content in the first place. Which, now that I've been exposed to it, isn't that shocking, but when I first started seeing these videos, it was unbelievably shocking to see just how many products people had accumulated in their cupboards to make specific content. And again, I do think a lot of this content is rage bait, but it's still warping our sense of how many products is normal to have in our homes. Again, there's one TikTok that really stands out to me of, I think she's probably a cozy or comfort creator, and she was preparing a scent themed bath. So let's say it was bubblegum or something. She chose between 8 to 10 products. Again, it was very ASMR, the kind of taking products out of the shelf, and then saying that she was going to use all 8 to 10 products in this whole routine for during and after her bath. To me, that is clearly rage bait because it's unfathomable to use that many products, especially of the same scented things, which are probably all scented slightly differently. And it's clearly a way to get brand recognition. But unfortunately, I think it does so much more harm than they realize. Just the promotion of overconsumption, the amount that they are probably wasting, and also encouraging people to buy items that they probably will buy and not like, especially if these things are combined together. This trend doesn't feel like a form of maximalism at all, but rather the choice to overconsume simply because they can, maybe? I often wonder why Overconsumption Core has even arisen in the first place. Is it just a general desire to be able to buy the things that they want simply because they have the money to do so? Do they not care about the planet or big box stores being unethical or workers' rights or anything like that? Do they simply not think about those? Or I thought maybe people are feeling hopeless and the only way to feel a bit of joy in the world right now is to simply be able to buy the things that they want or that we think we want. Honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea what drives this trend. But if you do, I would love to know in the comments below, especially if you could illuminate this a little bit for me. These are just a few things I've been putting out there to really think about. Okay, so we have Underconsumption Core. We have Overconsumption Core. But I've also seen a huge rise in the prevalence of hobbies on social media with trends like the feminine urge to, and then it'll be a compilation of clips where people are trying out different things and just trying to learn different skills and try out new hobbies, which I have participated in myself and I personally think is actually very positive. And kind of coupled with the idea of underconsumption and the rise of hobbies, I think this has pushed us a little bit closer to that reason why so many people are engaging in a low or no buy year. I think social media is so integral to this conversation about why people are doing a low or no buy year, simply because of its relationship to consumption. And that's why I think it's such a positive thing that people are talking a lot more about hobbies and about spending less time doom scrolling. If they're learning something, then they're doing something with their hands. I always talk about knitting as a hobby that I have personally taken up and something that has really helped to keep my hands occupied. So it basically completely removes that physical ability to scroll on my phone. I think it's a very powerful and empowering thing to see people really moving towards trying to spend more time focusing on things that will actually improve their lives rather than doom scrolling. And I know that it's very hard. I myself have been in a very terrible mental health hole for the past 2 months, but I have definitely found that spending less time on my phone and really trying to figure out what hobbies bring me genuine happiness and joy have massively contributed to help bringing me just slightly out of that hole. And I think that this directly feeds into this idea of a digital detox core. I'm not sure why it has to be called core, but it is what it is. And as I mentioned earlier, this is about being offline and how being offline is actually now becoming this some form of social currency. I think it ties into the idea of I don't need to be online, I don't need to be scrolling because I have all these hobbies. I have such a full and rich and fulfilling life away from social media. So now it's becoming this thing that we want to chase and things that we might be jealous of. I know that I've certainly been jealous of it because I felt quite lonely recently. And when you don't see people online as much or posting as much, you think, what are they doing in their personal lives? What are they doing with their time if they're not on social media? And it can really make you look inward and kind of reflect on how you're spending your time. And again, just like anything, it can be a positive or a negative. But if we choose to see it as a positive, then I think that it can have the possibility to really enrich our lives. A few things that have come up for me whilst doing a low buy year is honestly how utterly shocked I am at myself for thinking I needed X amount of money to live a specific lifestyle. And I realized that that's actually not a lifestyle that I'm interested in having at all. Social media, the neighborhood you live in, the people you surround yourselves with, they can completely warp your sense of what is enough for you and how much money you want to be spending on specific things. You might find yourself spending more money on things that you never wanted to and feeling more insecure about your financial situation because of it. You might be made to feel like you need to buy a better car or dress a certain way or upgrade your outdoor gear every single year to stay on trend. But you know what? You might want to do this too. I went on an unfollowing frenzy. I unfollowed anyone that triggered me or made me feel like I had to spend money to be accepted for who I am, or to be liked, or to find friends, or to be accepted in society. I unsubscribed from newsletters and marketing emails and even blocked some brands that would not take the hint. And I even muted a load of my friends on social media who are content creators, so I wouldn't feel that sense of inadequacy when I saw them working with brands that went in a different direction and chose not to work with me. I didn't want to feel that way and I didn't want to see that content, so I simply muted it and just removed that from my life. And honestly, I'm feeling so much lighter for it. And my head is feeling a lot more clear about what is enough for me, and I'm getting a sense of clarity about actually how lucky I am to have what I have, and being able to choose to do a low buy or no buy year instead of having to do it out of necessity. It also helps me to feel this immense power in choosing to weaponize my money and withhold it from companies that just do not align with my ethics, and being able to put that money into my local economy, local and small businesses instead. An unexpected side effect of doing a low buy year is it did help me to step away from scrolling so much on TikTok and Instagram, because it was harming me in ways that I didn't even realize. I actually found that it was altering my personality, and instead of being happy for the achievements of my friends, I was becoming jealous, and it was really having negative side effects on my mental health. And I hate that. I love to be excited for other people. I love to celebrate other people's achievements, and social media was truly harming that. One comment that I came across that I thought really exemplifies this was, social media used to be something that people went on to have fun and be amused by, but now it's just stressful and creates insecurities. 100% I agree with that. So of course we have Underconsumption Core, the rise of hobbies, digital detoxing, all of those things, but at the root of it, economic instability coupled with a political climate that does not serve people will inevitably force people to be more restrained with their spending and look for ways to create stability, maybe through focusing on building up an emergency fund or tackling debt, and honestly just trying to find their own ways to safeguard their future. I have also felt economic insecurity since moving to the US, and a lot of the people in my life here in Denver have either lost their jobs or their partners have lost their jobs over the past couple of years, and have really felt the full force of the current economic instability of not just the US, but many other countries across the world. Of course, I've only briefly touched on a lot of different reasons as to why people are moving towards a low or no buy year in 2025. But if you're choosing to do a low or no buy year, then I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that people have just simply had enough. They've had enough of influencer culture, of everything seeming to be an advert these days. Even paid for streaming services seem to be filled with advertisements, which feels like a really big scam in my opinion. It's as if everywhere you turn, you're being sold something. How to be prettier or look younger, how to lose weight or be more likable, or even to be happy. But one thing I've learned is that we can't buy our way out of feeling sadness or loneliness or even that feeling of inadequacy. Embarking on this low buy year has truly rocked my world to its core. And I think that it has for a lot of other people too. The irony is that sharing this on social media has actually helped bring my community closer, and I feel like everyone has been engaging in the conversation around it and talking about their wins, how much money they were able to save, or how the pain of a big medical bill was lessened because they had put time and effort into really trying to build up an emergency fund. However slowly, it can make such a big impact. So that's all I have for you today. This is my first video essay in quite a while, so I apologize if it's not quite as well structured as I hoped it would be, but these are just a lot of thoughts that I'm having about why a no buy or low buy year is really taking over in 2025. I feel like a lot of these things have converged, and it's really interesting to see. If you're doing a low buy or a no buy year, I would love to understand your reasons as to why you're doing it and what helped contribute to you making that decision. If you like this video, then please leave me some feedback in the comments. I'm always reading the comments to try and learn and make my videos more informative or more interesting, more educational. So feel free to not hold back. And of course, again, if you did like it, please give it a thumbs up because it really helps to support my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here and engaging in this conversation with me. I think that it's fascinating, and I think that it's a really positive thing to see where we're headed. But with everything, there are always dark sides, and I think it's really important that we try to create community around the positives and take this into a successful low buy year for everyone who's engaging with it. Anyway, I've taken up a lot of your time, so I just want to say thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.